Hello, this is a video about the repair and assessment of a Bluthner grand piano. It's ex-pianola grand piano made in 1914. Now, as we remove this desk here, we can see where the player piano mechanism fitted in. And it's been taken out. It's quite common to find grand pianos with player piano mechanisms taken out. You see down the bottom here where the pedals are, the mechanism has been taken out as well. There's actually quite a lot of woodworm along this bottom rail here. That needs treating really and checking that it's still not active. Now, the main initial repair on this piano was just to sort out sticky notes. They were sticking. There's still one or two that need repairing, but they were sticking after having the piano being stored and moved. Now, when the piano's moved, it's put on its side, and Bluthners particularly have this problem. Now, I've taken the front off to show what's happening, and that is when the piano's turned on its side, when it's moved, the piano's turned on its side and the keys come up on this. There's no rail here to stop them. We'll look at a Bechstein, for example. Nearly all pianos have this rail. It's just for use and removal, so that when the piano's turned on its side, the key doesn't come right out, because it can cause a lot of problems, especially if the removal firm is not that experienced with moving pianos. Now, here's another Bluthner grand. You see no rail there at all, so these keys can come up very easily and in removal. I don't quite know why Bluthner didn't fit the rail on there. There must be a good reason for it, but practically every other manufacturer has got one. That's the only problem. The Bluthner's a wonderfully made piano, obviously. This one has much shorter keys, as you can see. The player piano has very long keys to fit in the player mechanism here. Now, long keys are very pleasant. They feel nice to play. It's like a seesaw here, with the key going down there and up at the back. And in a way, the longer the seesaw, the more control you've got. But having said that, there are problems with the player mechanism that are caused by the length of the key and the extra weight. Here we see this is just for the player mechanism, and it creates a lot of extra weight. Bluthners have tried to deal with this. And by the way, this is a 1914 Bluthner. Normally, Bluthners of that age are patent action. This is a normal roller action like you get in modern pianos. And this is the patent action found in Bluthner grands right up until 1925 normally, unless someone's actually replaced them. Now, looking inside the piano itself, we can see quite a lot of moth here. There's couple entirely missing, couple of felts entirely missing there. So we looked in the piano to see if there was any more moth. And sure enough, under the keys, I think you can probably see the moth eggs very clearly there. Real problem with moth on this piano. And taking the action out, here you can see a lot of moth in the damper lift felts here. So really, it's quite serious. Having taken the action out, we can see a lot of moth in the damper lift rail here, and all over the piano really there's plenty of moth, a real problem. I mentioned that the action's been made heavier by these extra bits for the player piano, and Bluthners have done something to try and improve the weight. So as we were saying, the extra mechanism put in to operate the player piano mechanism, this is for that reason, has caused extra weight. So the key weight is, you see the pile of coins here. It's an amateur way of measuring weight. There's 5 old 1 point coins plus 20p will be about right. There's 8 here plus 2 20p's, and it's still just about beginning to go down. So it's over 70 grams, which is extremely heavy and makes the touch feel very heavy. Having said that, it's interesting that Bluthners haven't added to the weight of these keys, because you can put lead weights in there, which would help to ease that problem and maybe bring it down by 10 or 20%. Here's another Bluthner grand. You can see the lead weights there. That's to weigh off, so that the weight is around about 47 grams on the older pianos, which is ideal, gives it a lovely feel. So 70 grams then is quite hard work really, and maybe we could try weighting the keys. Hopefully that would work, but I'm not quite sure why Bluthners didn't do it themselves. That's something I'd like to learn. If you're a technician and listening to this, then it'd be very helpful if you could shed light on that. From a technical point of view, it's interesting to see how these top hammers here, they've really tried to take the weight off them, I presume, by cutting as much off as possible, both of the felt and the wood here. Very interesting. These action stays are loose, causing quite a lot of action noise as I push the hammers down. You can hear that. That's because the action stays are loose. The hinges are not loose, as I suspected they might have been, but in fact they're not. Though the piano's been played quite a lot, you can see by the hammers. Some of these hammers are moth-eaten too. They're probably not affecting the tone too much, but or the playability, but there's a lot of moth in the piano generally. Now, one of the other main technical issues is the tuning. It's slightly flat, not terribly flat, and it's reasonably in tune with itself. But you see this replacement string here, that's an indicator, and another one here, that the bass strings could easily break if we pitch raised. Bluthner bass strings are very high tensile, very inclined to break, and I'm not going to test any tuning pins apart from these ones with the new strings to see if they're tight. They're reasonably tight, but they're not very tight. So difficult to know what to advise there. It's Bluthner's being such well-made pianos, it'll probably stay reasonably in tune for a long time. If it was a stock piano, we would definitely, well, we wouldn't buy a X-Player piano, stock piano, because of the cosmetics. There's a dead wasp in there, as you probably noticed. So quite a few more technical things to say about the piano. I hope I've gone through the main ones. I forgot to mention there was a key top also come loose. We check all the others to make sure none of the others were going loose at the same time. The other thing is, if you want to stick this back properly, you really have to clamp it, but otherwise you end up with a very pronounced join mark here. Generally they're not incredibly bad. Let's have a look at the stock one. There's a stock Bluthner ground to compare with, and we can see the very slight line there. It's very hard to get it absolutely invisible. Once they've come off, you re-glue them. You can see the ones that haven't come off at all as you go towards the end of the keyboard. It's generally in the middle. They're put on with animal glue, and they as they heat up, they come off. They also come off with changes of humidity. Going towards the top, you can see the line right the way through. Some pianos show the line more than others, but so that's to be expected because all ivories are two-piece. Occasionally you find one-piece ivories if the piano's been restored, and this was restored in the 70s or 80s, this piano, and has one-piece ivory, so there's no line showing there. So it's best to replace them with synthetic glue rather than animal glue, which we would use on other action parts, but in the case of ivories it's best to replace them with synthetic glue, clamp them down, and then probably buff them at the end, try and get this line as minimal as possible. So that's an assessment for repair and possible restoration of a Bluthner. It's a Style 8, but it's an X-Player piano, so it's quite a lot longer than Style 8. It's 210 centimetres. Now the keys are very heavy to play, but the main thing we had to do first of all is to sort out problems that have been caused by removal. When Bluthners are moved, they haven't got a key rail, so therefore you have to be very, very careful. The keys may come up, and then you have to anchor them down again. And in this case, there were quite a few other problems caused by that as well. And some of the keys are still sticking, like this one. It's something technical that we can put right. It's not going to be a problem. But there's many other issues on this piano, really. The moth is excessive and needs treating, obviously. Then the key weight, as I'm playing now, it's really, really, really heavy to play. So that would need addressing too. It's a nice rosewood underneath, and the piano could do with repolishing. So there's quite a lot of things to talk about. I probably haven't covered them all. The tuning is important. If you have a Bluthner Grand with original strings as this one has from 1914, and it's slightly flat, you really have to be very, very careful not to break bass strings. We would lubricate the pressure points first, such as the pressure bars, agraffs, and then after that still be likely to break a bass string. They so easily break, so that's a problem too. So underneath that lies a really good toned piano. Thank you very much for listening.